Hey there, it's Wednesday, February 10th, 2016. Wednesday, of course, comic book day. This week review is going to be in three parts. Tiny Marvel bit, little tiny DC bit, and then a slightly bigger, not Marvel or DC bit. So we're starting off with the Marvel comics this week with Hawkeye number 4. This seems to be returning to the sort of comic that this creative team was doing with Hawkeye before the latest issue number 1. So all new Hawkeye issue number 1, the one right after Fraction's run with Hawkeye. But instead of going back to Clint's past and backstory and examining his childhood, we are doing the same with Kate now. And so we have Kate's watercolor childhood, and we find out that she was raised, or not really raised, by her incredibly wealthy, powerful businessman sort of father. And you have all the kind of standard tropes that go with that. She feels ignored. She feels like the dad is a workaholic who doesn't really pay much attention to her. And she thinks that if I were to just go missing, that nobody would notice. And the art is still gorgeous, just as it was the first time we saw this style with the Clint flashbacks. So, same old kind of thing with that. Meanwhile, in the present, we have Clint, who has gone to S.H.I.E.L.D. in order to try and find Kate and rescue the children and repair their relationship because he needs her. So we have that going on, and the stories are of course, kind of spliced together. So we have Clint dealing with S.H.I.E.L.D., and then you flip the page, and you got a bit of Kate's past, Kate's childhood. And the whole thing goes to set up kind of how Clint is a father figure to Kate. Kate's father wasn't really around to pay attention to her. Meanwhile, you have Clint going through all of this trouble trying to get her back and find out where she was. Little kid Kate thinks if I were to disappear, no one would notice, and Clint, of course, notices when she's gone, and more than that, just wants her back. And so that is the story they're trying to set up here, and it works. It's kind of a not too well explored element of their relationship that adds a bit more pathos, and I guess they kind of played with the father-daughter thing. I always got more of a big brother little sister kind of relationship from them, but they're doing the father-daughter angle, and even if it isn't exactly paternal, it's still, like they actually do care for each other, that they fill a hole in each other's lives. That, Clint needs Kate, but at the same time, Kate, who is often the more capable Hawkeye, still feels like she needs someone around. Not to take care of her, but just so she isn't so lonely, so she doesn't feel ignored like she was as a child. So that's what we're getting here. Does it say how many issues this arc is going to be? Because they've been doing that. 3 issues. So another kind of short arc, and so far, pretty good. Liking the emotional angle they're going for, and the art is really good. I'm really liking the art. Also the cover, which is, just really, really evocative cover, I think. Bright colors and all that. I like it. Next up, we have Miss Marvel, issue number 4. Another really good cover here, except for this little tag on top saying it's the start of a new arc. And I think, yeah, Hawkeye has that too, but I was covering it with my hand. It's over here where it's not so noticeable because it's above the barcode, but right here it's just kind of meh, it just kind of gets in the way of this. Another really fun cover of Kamala stopping something big from falling. And in my last review of a Miss Marvel book, I kind of complained how they were telling a lot of kind of familiar teenage superhero stories about the balance between work and school, or superhero work and school and all that, and how I was getting kind of bored with that kind of story. And this seems to be the same sort of thing going on, where we have Kamala being burdened by too many things. This adds the 3rd issue between school, superheroing, and now Kamala having to help arrange a marriage between her brother Amir and Taisha, who is Amir's girlfriend, and they've decided to marry each other. And I like how Kamala's really celebrating. She has the Wolverine slippers on over there. Just a cute little detail. But of course, burdened under all this work, Kamala starts to get sloppy in bits and pieces of them. And just another thing I want to like as I make this transition, we have like the color palette here is kind of warm and pastel and kind of gentle, I guess, at home. And then as soon as you flip and go to the superhero pages, we get a lot more saturated colors. And I just like the contrast there between like the kind of, pastel, warmer home life and then the super energetic, saturated superhero life. So that's a really cool thing they did with the coloring in this book. So we have Kamala, again, seeing her as a superhero. She gets a little sloppy, trapped in the net and all that. And she's just, overwhelmed, dealing with way too many things. She feels like she's a burden on her family. She's a burden on the Avengers. And luckily, Bruno has come up with a kind of solution. It is a very sitcom solution, and it involves Kamala cloning herself, or Bruno making golems that become Kamala clones, so that there can be clones that deal with the weird stuff, and I can just focus on one thing at a time. And Bruno immediately calls this out as the worst sitcom plot he ever heard, or what are his words exactly? Well, he says he thinks it's a spectacularly bad idea, but I can't remember where he says it's basically a sitcom, though he does say it. And what I like is that the Kamala clones have Ditto faces, like from Pokemon, when the Ditto transforms into you. They have just the blank eyes and smile, so I like that. And yeah, Kamala Clone Troubles is this latest arc. It's fun. I mean, kind of plays into what I was saying before about just repeating Spider-Man stories with a Pakistani girl, because you have the Clone Saga now. But as kind of overdone as some of these plots are, I still really enjoy these characters. I enjoy Kamala. I like Bruno. I like, Mike, we still don't really know that much, but she's there and she's not offensive. I like Amir. Just a lot of these people in the book are really likable. I want to keep on following them. And, a clone thing, it is kind of trite sitcom stuff for the point where the story acknowledges it, but maybe they'll find a neat little twist to make things a bit more interesting. Either way, I'm picking up the next issue. And the last Marvel issue I picked up this week, another Miss Marvel focused book, is Avengers. Avenger No More, Miss Marvel, another really good Alex Ross cover. Although, it's weird going from like a super cartoony Kamala on this cover to like a really hyper-detailed, realistic Kamala on this cover. And then you have like just the really comic booky balloon right there. Just kind of throws you a bit. Oh, this isn't Alex Ross. It's Dave McCaig. Sorry, Dave McCaig. I just kind of automatically assume that any painted comic book cover is Alex Ross. My bad. But still a nice cover. So we begin this book with Kamala writing some fanfic about Captain America and Thor, which gets increasingly silly over the course of that spread. And then Kamala just really enjoying her life as an Avenger. We see her swinging with Spider-Man. We see her wrestling with the giant robot in the park and winning. And then things go to shit as the Vision, for some reason, betrays her. The Vision frames her for putting innocent people in danger through like negligence, just not paying attention, which causes Iron Man to kick her out of the Avengers because she's not ready, according to the Vision. And why would the Vision lie? Of course, on her way out, Kamala runs into the only other person on the team with reasons to be suspicious of the Vision, Nova, and Nova does not handle this in the proper way. He just kind of barges in and says, Kamala's telling the truth, the Vision is lying, which of course nobody believes. So we have a team divided, with 2 members kicked out almost instantaneously, and then the rest of the team has to go fight off a threat named Equinox at the High Line, and the High Line is an actual place in New York. It really looks like this. It's really pretty. So if you're ever in New York, you can stop by the High Line and say, I learned about this from an Avengers comic. But the rest of the Avengers, the remaining Avengers, have to stop this guy, and things get complicated when he starts cloning himself. Supposedly from the future, and I'm not going to spoil the few remaining pages of this book, but we find out whether or not these clones are really from the future, whether they're from somewhere else, and whether or not the remaining Avengers can defeat them on their own. Pretty interesting first issue of an arc here, I think. You already have a pretty good A story with Kamala and Nova being kicked out of the Avengers, and the B story they set up at the end with the actual villain and the fighting and all that, goes in a really interesting direction by the end. I'm not going to spoil it because it's last 2 pages sort of thing that if you are interested, you should read the book. But yeah, I enjoyed this as a first issue. We had some really happy, good Kamala moments with Kamala in the beginning, with the Avengers, just kind of enjoying things. We get a nice, and then that gets crushed and, really builds the story there when she gets kicked out, and then the fight with Nova and all that. So we're getting lots of tension, lots of build-up there. And I like the way that all the characters are reacting to this, because it's kind of the same thing behind Civil War, the comic, not the movie, and that it's about, heroes need to be accountable for their actions and all that, but this is, of course, being handled a lot better than Civil War because the characters are acting reasonable instead of declaring that Kamala completely give up superheroing and her identity and all that. They just say, you know what, you can't be on the Avengers, you're too green, get some practice, we'll talk about it later. Which is more reasonable for people like Iron Man and Captain America, instead of just, let's have a war about all this. I really like the art in this book. Again, just super saturated, blues, yellows, reds, my kind of art. So no complaints there. And I don't know how many times I've said this by now, probably 5, because we're on issue 5. Nobody really writes a team book like Mark Waid. He's just really damn good at balancing so many characters, so many motivations, and, at least 3 plots all at once. So, good stuff here with Avengers. And that is it for this first part of this week's comic book reviews. If you're looking for my reviews of some Batman books that came out this week, that'll be in the next part. And then the third part will be a whole bunch of stuff that is neither Marvel or DC. Some Vertigo, not Vertigo, I don't think. Got some Dark Horse, some Image, some other stuff. So, stay tuned for that. But if you don't, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please rate it. If you feel like to, please subscribe. If you feel like it, please subscribe. Any comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas, opinions, anything whatsoever, leave them in the comments and I will try my best to get to them. And yeah, that's that. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you do join me for some more comic book reviews.